Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob, and we want to welcome you to a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
That's right, everyone. We are back with a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. But before we get started, Ray, you got to tell everybody what it is we do here.
What we're trying to do here, Rob, is I'm trying to show you a movie that I love that you've never seen. I'm going to see if I can get you to love it as much as I do.
That's right. We call that our fresh perspective on a retrospective review. And as Ray said, it is his turn. And I'm going to see if he's going to slap me in the face after the last one.
No, I'm not. I'm sticking to my guns here.
Okay.
And by guns, I mean literally. I'm going with Western.
Okay.
I've had some fun. I try to do one Western a year. I love Westerns, and I didn't always love them.
No, that's true. You didn't, and I mean, but when you're young, it's like when you're a kid, you like westerns because like maybe your dad did, or whatever. You were kind of connected in that way. But yeah, I obviously we were Tombstone fans.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
You know.
that's I don't consider that a Western. I consider that a badass movie. So,
It just completely just transcends the genre.
yeah. Sorry, but yeah. But one thing about Westerns I feel like is sometimes I feel like they can almost feel the same. Like not the good ones, but the bad ones, where it's just like, there's a bad guy, there's a good guy, they're gonna shoot, and they don't like each other. I don't always feel like Westerns challenge themselves to like do something new and different, and those are the ones that speak to me. And I thought when I brought up like High Noon, trying to do something like that, and I think I'm gonna do something like that this time. I'm gonna bring a type of a Western movie that's going to speak to the times.
Interesting.
It's going to challenge maybe the Western audience a little bit.
Okay. Well, we had such a fun time with High Noon.
We did,
and we did McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which is another interesting take on the Western. So we have become a big fan of Westerns. We both have. You said you have. We both have.
Yep.
So I'm super excited to see what you got. So before we get going, Ray, I got to know, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
Well, Rob, what I have for you is the 1958 Western, The Big Country.
Ooh.
Starring Gregory Peck.
Okay.
Charlton Heston.
Okay.
2 years after playing Moses, he's playing
Ooh.
kind of a bad guy in this.
Sure.
It's got, do you know Burl Ives?
Yep.
The snowman from Rudolph.
Yep.
He's actually a human in this. He's not claymation.
Are you sure he's not walking around as just three orbs?
No?
No?
And he's great. He's actually he's really great in this. Jean Simmons, Carroll Baker, Charles Bickford, and Chuck Connors are probably kind of round out the cast. Everybody really does a great job. But this is just one of those Westerns that I don't want to give too much away, but like there's layers to it and speaking to things, and there's themes, like lots of themes to talk about. But basically what's happening is Gregory Peck, who I love, he is marrying into like this family, and what he doesn't know is his family is at like having a land war with another family.
Okay.
So he's kind of marrying into this,
as you do.
Yeah.
In the Westerns.
Yeah, of course. He in a way is like he's a city folk kind of guy. He's a sea captain, like a New England sea captain.
Arr.
So yeah, R is my last name. So he's kind of, and he, in a way, I don't want to say he's a pacifist, but he's like
not Nam, of course.
There are rules, but that's basically like he doesn't like, he's not a cowboy.
Sure.
He doesn't just like fall into like the roles that a cowboy should out west, even though he's now moving out west.
Right.
He doesn't believe he needs a change to live life like how these people think that they are supposed to live.
So it's very like cultural differences.
Big time cultural differences, and so like lots of big themes there. Like even the name Big Country in a way is a theme, because we have this big country, but we're having land battles. So there's plenty of land to go around.
Sure.
But lots of stuff to talk on. I love it. I think you're gonna love it too. And like I said, it's a bunch of big time, like Gregory Peck, Charlton Heston, some big actors that we really have not had on our show yet before. So I'm excited to bring them into the car Ray Rob world.
No, it's always good to add to our collection, if you will, of these actors and bring them in. But yeah, no, this is a movie that I've heard the name.
Yeah.
I will admit, like, when I've heard of like Western, people talk about, great Westerns and stuff
Yeah.
like that. This is definitely one that, a title that has come up. But I was not that familiar with the subject matter. And it does sound very interesting, especially as you said, kind of like this idea of the battle between city life and country life.
Yep.
And like, those two like divides of, whether it be class or just culture or whatever.
Yeah. Class is going to be in here too.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
I think so that definitely is intriguing to me, and it sounds like this could be a layup.
Yeah.
Which is not what
hope
I did
so.
to you last time. So yeah,
No.
I think I appreciate the layup. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch it. And that is what we are going to do right now. Ray and I are going to go watch The Big Country, not Big Country.
No.
It's got to have the. And we are going to see if I love this movie as much as Ray does.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, guys. Rob and I are back from watching The Big Country. And Rob, in regards to movies, have you ever seen something so big?
They say that a lot.
Yes.
A lot. But I do feel like their worldview is really small.
That's good. Yes, that's obviously a big talking point. I think that we got to get to.
It is. It really is. But before we kind of dive into this, I'm just gonna say it outright. Patricia is unbearable. Like, she is awful.
Yeah, that's like the easiest dump ever.
Oh, right.
Like when McKay's done with Pat, he's like, finally, let's get rid of this girl.
Yeah, it was so weird because I feel like, obviously this is not the first movie I've ever seen where a guy shows up with one girl and ends up with another. That happens all the time.
Sure.
But I do feel like, they don't even go out of their way to try to make you like her.
No.
Like, it's just like you're rooting for her or for him to dump her almost from the beginning.
Yeah, from the opening scene, she like ditches him. She's not there to pick him up.
Yeah.
And then soon after that, like, she, as McKay kind of blames her for starting that whole thing with the Hannassey boys. So, she is pretty much unlikable from the jump. I do think they kind of hide that he's going to kind of fall for Julie.
Yeah, no, I can
well.
agree with that. Like, I don't think they make that super overt,
Yeah.
even though I kind of figured that might be what happens just because of how unbearable Patricia was. Otherwise, I'm like, I'm not going to, like, why am I rooting for this couple? So, like, I had it in the back of my
Especially
mind, but
once
I
he goes
agree.
once he goes to buy the old mud and you see them interacting at the house. Like, okay, this is a fit.
For sure, absolutely. But, this is an interesting movie, and, I feel like this is the second time you've kind of done this to me. So you brought High Noon.
I did.
And
that was season 1, the Western I brought to the table.
Right. And, I feel like, just like High Noon, The Big Country feels, okay, I'm going to use this word, and it might sit weird with some people, but I feel like this. It almost feels like satire. At times when it comes to the Western, like you could talk about that with the McKay character, just how his demeanor is and kind of being the antithesis of what you would think of as a Western hero. But even the movie itself, like the beats of the movie, it's like it shirks different things that you expect a movie to do.
Yeah.
A Western to do specifically.
Yeah, let's point our conversation toward that direction of answering that question. Yeah.
Right. Is The Big Country a satire?
And satire doesn't have to be comedy.
Exactly.
That's
I mean? Exactly my point. Like, I think people feel like it does,
right.
But I don't necessarily think that it does.
Right. Well, let's explore. Let's educate
yes.
If we can, if we're capable.
Well, that's not what we do here, but we'll certainly give it a try.
Well, let's start with McKay himself. And one thing I don't there's no connection to this, but when every time I think of this movie, I always kind of think of it like McKay and Mrs. Maragon, And you brought to us the movie like McCabe and
Mrs.
Mrs. Miller.
Right.
And so I'm like, was that ever done on purpose? You think there was slightly connection there?
Maybe,
Who knows?
Right.
But I will say I do love Jim McKay, you know, Gregory Peck as a character.
Peck, yeah.
I find him fascinating in this movie, and he is an antithesis of a Western lead, or who you think would be the Western, you know, the lead character of a Western movie.
Right. Which, you know, makes sense to a degree because he is this is a fish out of water kind of story, pun intended, since he's a sailor. But, you know, and that's kind of the thing, you know, it's like either bringing the sailor out west. And so there's always going to be that, you know, friction, if you will, culturally from the east to the west,
right?
Especially at that time, you know, the refinery of New York and, you know, places like that, and, you know, Philadelphia, and then you coming out to the west where it's like there is no law, you know. I mean, that's kind of the big part.
200 miles away is the nearest police officer,
right? There's no law, so these people are just kind of doing whatever the hell they want to whoever they want, and so, but I also. I love, you're right, the Jim McKay character, because he, you know, for being such an antithesis, he fits into this story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's such a compelling character in that regard. I mean, and part of that's Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
Just the power of the actor Gregory Peck. But also, I think the way that this character is written.
Yeah, I think, you know, the movie, I think, does a good job at first. You know, like you said, it's a fish out of water. Like, he wears a funny hat. He wears his pants too high. He doesn't fit in here. And that's like, you know, that's very surface level, that, you know, kind of introducing you to, like, yes, he, you know, like you said, fish out of water. He's different. This is, you know, he's going to have to learn to adapt out here. He's going to have to change in some ways. But then you think about who he is fundamentally as a man.
Right.
And that is what this movie is really talking about. Like, you know, I think right now we kind of, you know, maybe the term toxic masculinity is thrown around like more disparaging, like it almost like it's a name calling thing nowadays. But like what we're really talking about is those behaviors that people think define manliness.
Well, and the fear behind it.
Right.
Yeah, and the fear that drives it. And there's a lot of that in this, where there's, you know, being afraid of not being seen a certain way.
Exactly. And that's like this. So to me, it's like, I just love this idea of like, this character's definition of a man is so much different than what everybody else thinks the man should be. Right. At this time.
I agree.
And it's he's just as strong. He can ride a horse. He's, you know, he's, I mean, he's got a better sense of his morals than anybody else in the story.
Right.
He doesn't care about what people think, which is like such a big deal. So many people like, aren't these the characteristics that we should be trying to replicate?
Yeah. And I think one of the kind of the funniest parts about it is he's a sailor.
Right.
You know, I mean, yes, his family owns a shipping company, but he has clearly been a sailor as well. He has been at sea. He has, you know, seen a lot of interesting, crazy things. So people kind of
he tells them this,
right?
But they don't listen,
right? They kind of just brush him off because he's not from the West. So because he's not from the West, he's not a man. And I think that is such an interesting idea of, you know, creating a box that fits, you know, what a man is supposed to be from this area. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, because he is a sailor, you know, but he's from the East, he's not that.
Yeah.
You know, he can't find his way around. He can get lost easily. You know, he's some doddering fool who, you know, has been counting money his whole life.
He's like, well, I have a compass. Like, no, that won't work out here. Like, it does.
A compass will literally work everywhere.
That's
on
why
the
they
earth,
invented that.
right?
You know?
Unless you're near a big magnet.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Which they weren't worried about.
They weren't worried about.
And that's, you know, that's the thing. Obviously, you know, there's that, don't judge a book by its cover. Right.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
Don't judge this man by his cover. And, you know, like, don't think so many people, I feel like, think that their bubble is so unique and so special. It's, you know, like that they are special because they are from this area, or they think this way. You know, they were exposed to this one thing. But like, you've only been exposed to one thing. You know what I mean? Where McKay has traveled the world, he's seen ports all over the country. Like, this isn't anything special to him. It's just the next thing.
Right.
Where all these Texans in this movie are just so like, you know, that's why we hear them say the big country so many times. Like, and they constantly are asking him, "Have you ever seen something so big?"
Yeah, like the old man at the party.
And McKay's like, "Yes."
A couple of oceans.
He's like, I've never.
Right.
Like how so dare you insult that you've seen something bigger than this?
Right. But it goes to show, like, human perspective is so singular. Like, it's
Right.
so focused on yourself and what you see and what you know, and whatever this other person knows and have seen doesn't measure up just because you don't know what it is.
Right.
Like, that guy's
'Cause
clearly
you
never
don't
seen an
know.
ocean.
Right.
That guy's probably never seen an ocean in his life.
Yeah.
So
they come back to him a minute later. He's like, the ocean. There's
Right.
like what could that possibly look like? You know
right.
what I mean?
Exactly. But the other kind of funny metaphor for this as well, I kind of, in that scene, I kind of thought about this, and it's almost like, not that he's lost, and obviously not, they have a whole thing about how he isn't lost, but like, it almost feels like, it's kind of being lost on land, like you'd be lost on the sea. You know what I mean? Where it's like, he's out there in the middle, dealing with these people that, yes, not that they're that different, but they are different. And, he's trying to get his footing, you know what I mean? And find his way, just like he would find his way out on the ocean. So I think that that's kind of an interesting, why is the word gone? Transposing. Thank you.
Sure,
Like
you go.
Transposition. There we go.
Yeah.
Of of the sea to the land. And I think that like those work well in tandem.
I really love, and I just want to mention a couple things because I just think it's such a strong. It's not only strong characteristic of McKay as a character, but it's just like things people need to think about, just in their own life in general. And the movie does such a good job, I think, of just putting it in your face. But like, from the opening, not the opening scene, but like 3 or 4 scenes in, like this whole thing where people started to judge McKay was based off the fact that the Hannassey boys were giving them a hard time. Right? Like they were like harassing them a little bit as they were driving into town. And McKay kind of says like, yeah, they were drunk, they were acting a little stupid, but like I never felt in danger or anything. Yeah, they probably, I think they crossed the line, but he, he would say, well, they didn't cross the line until like Pat pulled a gun on them. Right. Then they got, then they started acting more intense because we, raised the intensity.
Right.
So it's like he kind of felt like, them, he didn't say this, but I'm putting it on him. But, he kind of feels like I got roped because Pat pulled a gun, not because the Hennessy's were being jerks. Right. You know what I mean? But everybody else looked at that as cowardice because he should have shot at him. He should have fought back. You know what I mean? Where, again, like sometimes bravery isn't just retaliating, getting revenge. Like that's not the characteristics of how we'd want to define what a man is. That's a lot of times that's how you define what an asshole is.
Well, definitely. Well, okay. Well, then let's talk about that situation in the broader context, because again, obviously, this all stems from this family feud, which let's be real, is the most Western element of this movie.
Sure,
is the Hannasseys versus the Major, the Terrells. Thank you, the Major and the Terrells.
Yeah, Major Terrell.
So, the idea of cowardice in that situation, I think, is partly just for Patricia, like what you would think a man should be because of what she was taught by the Major, because that's kind of where you
she looks up to him,
right? You kind of find their connection is kind of what drives her insufferability a bit. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
But I think the other added layer to that is that it did revolve around the Hannesseys in that moment. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
yeah,
it was.
If that was anybody else, that wouldn't have escalated.
Probably. Right. Exactly. It was just because that family hatred was there. So she kind of looks at it through 2 lenses. One, oh yeah, he's being a coward, but this family is getting one over on us.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of part of it, which is obviously why the Major ends up going and hunting them down at their homestead. And to try to like just scare them essentially, but it's
funny. They wanted to beat him up, like they did beat up the brothers pretty good,
right, and that's true. Well, absolutely, but so it's kind of funny as well because I also feel like in a situation like this you don't see it very often where so you got your your lead character, your central character, Jim McKay, comes to this family to be a part of this family, and usually I feel like in a movie like this it takes a little bit for you to realize, okay, they're the bad guys,
right?
Or or at least the badder of the two, whatever. They kind of go pretty hardboard pretty quick on that. The Terrells are actually the more aggressive party in this. Because when they go, yes,
they're unlikable quickly,
right. So you've got like you said that opening scene with Buck and whatever, and roping Jim and blah blah blah. That's fine, and that's pretty small potatoes compared to the Major's response.
Right,
going out there, blowing apart letting the boys blow apart their water, tower, stuff like that. Really scaring the women and the children, and it's a gross overreaction.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I totally agree. I
They
think
almost feel like terrorists in that moment, if I could use that word. Like the Terrell gang almost comes off as like terrorists in that scene.
Yes, I agree. But I do feel like the movie is hoping, again, talking about this possibly being a satire to Westerns, I think the movie is hoping that you're on board that the Hennessy's are worse. And like that the Terrells, like, because there's no police force out here, this has to be done. These boys, they roped him, they threatened a woman, they deserve to get beat up. I think they want you to be like, in a Western, this makes sense. This is what should happen in a Western movie. These are the bad guys, and they're getting their comeuppance.
Right. Well, there you go.
But
it is part of the satire.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I mean? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So I do think you're right. I'm not disagreeing, but I do think the movie's hoping that you still hate the Hennessy's more. Because I even think when they introduced Rufus, the lead dog, the father figure
Burl
of the
Ives.
which I just love him in this movie. I
Yeah,
absolutely love him in this movie. But like that opening scene when he crashes the party with a gun, like you could think he's like, all right, they're trying to go back to showing you how bad the Hennessy's are. Yeah. But like everything he says is true about the Major. He's not lying. You know what I mean? So he kind of says, you just want to buy the Big Muddy because you want to start I get
box him
dehydrate.
Out basically box out his cattle from being water in the drought.
Yeah, and then force, basically ruin the Hennessy family. Like you don't have any good intentions here. You're a bad person. And we come to learn these are all true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like again, maybe that satire, that twist is the guy with the big eyebrows who wears the dark clothes, who's got the sons who don't act right. He's not he's not a good guy, but he's not the worst guy.
Right.
It's kind of like is that a quote from The Perfect World that we just did
last month?
I'm not a bad guy, but I'm not the worst.
Right.
Or I am a bad guy, but I'm not the worst.
Well, yeah, and even in that scene, he kind of lays out some pretty interesting elements. The idea he's like, I'm not complaining about 20 of your men beating 3 of mine until they can't walk. So I mean that's a pretty egregious thing that they did.
Exactly.
Again, especially for being such an overreaction to what happened with Jim. Not that it was necessarily acceptable, but when the Major came and threatens to burn down their whole house, the whole homestead, if something, if he ever has to come back, like that's a bit much. So you can see that kind of aggression there, but Rufus is a realist as well.
Absolutely.
Like you said, like he realizes that his sons are not great. Buck's kind of a pain.
And they're old enough, if they take their beatings, they take their beatings.
Right, and they even said it. So it's like, I think there's a real, like, while they're both, Rufus and the Major are both the driving force behind this feud, and they're both not necessarily great people. And obviously Rufus gets pushed to a point where he does some really bad things.
Yeah.
To a degree. I still think for the most part Rufus is more grounded.
Yeah.
And I feel like you root for Rufus for pretty much the whole movie. Like I don't think you ever really get to a point where you're not necessarily rooting for him.
As soon as you know, I think, and you might know this right away when it's happening, but in that scene we were just mentioning when he crashes the party and goes on this, gotta be a 5-minute like dialogue, which I love because
it's great scene.
It's also really well written because it's like he's not smart, he's not educated, like he's not he's not smart, like he's not an educated man, but he's articulate and he speaks well, and I just love how they write him. But either from that moment, from that moment on, you're either going to believe him and realize, wait, I like this guy.
Yeah.
I like what he stands for right off the bat. And I think McKay kind of does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think or you're not. Yeah. Or you're not going to catch on just yet, but soon you will.
Yeah. He sees he sees him as a true person. You know what I mean? And even he says, being a gentleman. Like Rufus talks about that. Like, and that's what Julie's father, who had passed away, like, he saw him as being a gentleman. You know, that kind of thing. So I think that there is a mutual respect. You're right, pretty early between Rufus and Jim, even if it's not necessarily spoken between the two of them because they don't speak. But like, I think
it's there because later in the movie, Jim tells him, he's like, "You had me fooled for quite a while that you were like a sensible man."
Right.
So you know that really his only other exposure to him was at that party. So that means from that party on, he thought that. And that, which explains why he maybe wanted to buy the Big Money to help Rufus in a way.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And they also go a step further. We kind of mentioned about Rufus knowing that his sons are, kind of pieces of crap. But like the next scene, Rufus goes home and he confronts Buck.
Yeah.
you know, and he's, I love the line is like, "Did you want me, Pa?" And he said, "I did before you were born."
That is such a nasty line. Like, it's so good.
Like it was like,
I heard you wanted me, Pa. Before you were born, I did.
Before, yeah. Right, exactly. And it was, you know, so I think that it goes to show that, again, like Rufus being a realist, and it also connects Rufus to the audience, realizing like there is fault here.
Right.
And I think that that's always something with a character that is compelling and that the audience can get behind, is when a character can realize their own faults.
Right.
And or just their faults in the situation, you know, that Buck's through like stirring up crap for no reason. It's like, why are you doing this?
Well, like, you know, to the point you said, like the reason why the Terrells went off is because Pat said, you know, that they were mean to me.
Right.
And so, you know, he doesn't seem like Old Major ever did an inquiry to see what, you know, was she at fault at all? Where it feels like Rufus takes that accountability with his own kid.
Yeah.
You know, and even when again, I think kind of fighting against that classic Western, when Buck, at that scene you were just mentioning, when Rufus is calling Buck out, when Buck kind of leads his father into figuring that he and Julie Maragon, who's the owner of the big money, the land that they all want, that she's sweet on him, that they could possibly get hitched. It never became like this. It wasn't this evil, like, supervillain idea in Rufus's head. We're like, oh, if Buck marries her, then I get the land and I can control. He was like, he genuinely thought Buck was telling the truth. And he said, what a miracle it would be if you and her get married. He's like, treat her right. Stop womanizing. Like, treat her right. Like, he wants this to be done the right way. But, you know, he just doesn't realize Buck's lying to him in that moment.
Right. Well, and that comes to a head later, obviously, when they eventually have, you know, Rufus is pushed to the point where he's finally like, bring Julie to me. Because, at that point, the Cattles had an incident at the water with the Terrells where they got, where the Hannassey's cattle got scared away, and then some of them died, and all of that. So then Rufus has had enough. Go get Julie, bring him here. Yeah. And this is kind of that thing where he kind of like pushes to the point where it's like, okay, now you're kind of starting to get into bad guy territory. You're like, when you're kidnapping Julie. And
he keeps doing something redeeming. They do something bad, and they do something redeeming.
Right.
Let's get there, because that will get us to the ending. But before that, I do want to mention a couple things with McKay, because there's a couple great scenes that I think will speak to the question that we're getting at. But, we have to talk about the only Charlton Heston.
Yeah, whose role in this movie feels small. But I mean, it is 58. But
but this is 2 years after the Ten Commandments. I think wasn't the Ten Commandments 56?
Was it? I could look it up real quick.
Yeah, I think this is after the Ten Commandments.
Which that's pretty crazy if it.
It is, especially if he's the villain.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I guess the Greatest Show on Earth 52, Touch of Evil is 58. Yeah, Planet of the Apes, or that was before, I was after. Ben-Hur was 59. Ten Commandments was 56. So I mean, Ten
Commandments first, then this, and then the big ones.
Yeah, it does feel a little small for him at that point to be a supporting character, if you will. But he does play him well. I'm not saying
there is subtlety there.
Yeah.
But I think Steve is the bad guy. I think we talk about classic Western. Like, Steve is the classic Western character.
Right, he is.
Like, he's the one who's grown up on a farm, and he's good with a gun, and he's got a posse and all this stuff.
Right.
So Steve does a couple things. Steve likes Pat, which makes it, you two go get married and be happy together. I don't care. I don't like either one of you. I don't care what happens to you.
Right.
But Steve he's automatically jealous of McKay right off the bat. And so he does a couple things, to challenge McKay. Like, one would be, like, they always, I guess, anytime he visits the Terrells' land, they put him on that Old Thunder, that horse that nobody can ride, and they have him thrown off and just look stupid in front of everybody.
Right.
And McKay won't bite.
Right.
Right. And
that's okay. I'm just gonna say this is a weird thing for me. For Patricia gets kind of upset that he wouldn't like.
She thinks it's a game. It's
like
fun.
He wouldn't ride Old Thunder. Like, you're mad because I wouldn't fall for the practical joke of getting thrown off of a horse.
Right.
Like, what, again, like, this goes back to that idea that she's just insufferable from the start, because this just makes no sense to me why you would get mad. You didn't fall for the practical joke meant to get yourself hurt.
Right, and it's not even that it was like it's not a practical joke could be done with good intentions. You know, it's like, hey, we're trying to initiate you into the team, and like it's it's just going to be funny. But that wasn't the purpose. Like Steve was doing it to make him look stupid in front of the whole farm.
And the fact that he was smart enough to not fall for it, that should be the bigger thing.
Right.
Oh, you're smart enough to not fall for this? Oh, that's really hot. Oh, you're dumb enough to get thrown off a horse? Man, that really gets me going. Like,
yeah.
What?
But again, it's playing to this theory in their minds, the Terrell minds, everybody and all the farmhands' minds, that he's a coward. Right. But we all know information that they don't, because we know that like 2 scenes later, him and Ramon, who I love Ramon in this movie.
Ramon is great. He's one of the unsung heroes of this movie.
He really is. But him and Ramon he does tame Old Thunder. He's the only person in the history of the Terrell Ranch that ever has. Eventually he gets kicked off 10 times, but McKay won't quit.
Yeah.
Because he has morals, he has purpose, and once he sets his mind to something, he's going to do it. But he's going to do it on his terms, the correct terms.
Right.
So he does tame that horse, but he swears Ramon to secrecy because also, and is this being what a real man is? But like he doesn't need to brag about his accomplishments.
Right.
He just wanted to know he could do it. Once he knew that brought him peace. That brought him content. Which everybody should think. Like you don't need outside verification on social media or whatever to feel happy. Like just be happy with what you can control and what you've accomplished.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even later when obviously things kind of go south with Patricia and she's like kicking him out or whatever. But before he goes, he tells Leach that he's going to fight him.
Right.
And they end up fighting just the two of them in the dark by themselves.
Well, just one little setup to that, because remember when he gets lost, or when they all think he's lost,
right?
And when he gets returned, Leach tells him or tells everybody that he found them lost.
Right,
he didn't know where he
was. It was going on, and he's like, "No, I know exactly where I was.
I told
every
you,
time.
you knew, and you knew I was. I walked up on you,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then McKay. And then it's obvious that Steve was trying to goad him into a fight in front of everybody. And then McKay says, "I'm not going to fight you on your terms. Like I'm not your chess piece. I'm not your spectacle.
Right.
Like you're not going to use me."
Yeah.
Even though he was insulting him, and like again, classic Western, nobody disrespects my lady in front of me. I'll punch your teeth out.
Yeah.
McKay doesn't play like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then it gets to the scene you were mentioning where he's like, later McKay's like, "All right, it's middle of the night. Steve, get your ass up. We're gonna go fight."
Right. And
just
they do.
us.
And he kicks the crap out of him. I mean, like, Steve obviously does a number on him too, but it's still this idea that he can,
it wasn't that he was scared again.
Right.
Yeah.
He could keep up with him to the end. And again,
he's a
sailor. Like that's the part of this that still always kind of bothered me. I was like, well, this is like, he's a sailor. You all know he's a sailor. Like, I get it. Like,
it doesn't bother me because they're just so in their own snow globe.
I mean, that's true, but even
nobody
like that,
can. It's like nobody can be as tough as me. Nobody can be as smart as me. Nobody can be as rich as me. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's funny because in the East, it's like that's what sailors are. You think of like, you're on a boat. They're the tough guys. They're the guys out like fighting on boats, and it's Popeye, and doing all that kind of stuff.
He wasn't like, I don't think he was he's like a ship's captain though, so he's not like in the Navy, but
still,
but yeah, like I said, he's been in ports, he's been roughed around, he knows, he can handle himself.
Yeah,
but I love that scene though, because it's so they do a good job when they frame like some of those shots where it's like they make it look like a big country and they're just two little specks fighting. Yeah. It's like, because at the end of the fight, it's kind of a draw.
Right.
And McKay says, "So what did we prove?"
What did we prove? Right.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. We proved nothing. Like nobody won necessarily. Nobody lost. Nobody's ego got bigger. Nobody won any tangible prize. You proved nothing.
Yeah.
It was for no reason.
Exactly. Well, let's circle into it. Let's kind of close the loop on this one with Julie, because like Patricia, because she's kind of the crux of all of this here, where it's like she's the one who, the major walks away or whatever, like, oh, look at this embarrassing guy or whatever, blah, blah. But Patricia is the one who really vocalizes, why don't you do this? Like, why don't you care what people think? Like, that kind of thing. And he's like, no. And that bothers her. And like, it's so funny. Cause like I said in the beginning, it's like for having this, the words big country thrown around. Oh, this is such a big country, but they have such a small way of thinking.
Right.
And like, that just, it was kind of funny to me through this whole movie how that just kind of kept ringing true.
Absolutely. That is. I think that's why it's called The Big Country, because there's 1,000 other names you could have named this movie.
Sure.
But that's that's what they call it. I think one thing to kind of bring us into the ending, which we kind of talked about, how basically there's a civil war that's brewing between the Hennessys and the Tyrrells. But I think there's that other. So much of this movie is about the toxic masculinity and defining what is a true man. We've talked about a good chunk of that. But I think there's this other part of the movie that is kind of talking about like I don't know, violence for sensibility, or like old verse, like the old ordering the young to die so they for their own prize, or the rich.
Sure. Like you're fighting, well, like
war.
Like, war. Well, yeah, like a battle or a war, like kind of what we talked about with JSA, where it's like you're fighting somebody else's war, you know, and then that's kind of the thing here. You know, Steve Leach and all of his men are fighting on their side, and the Hannesseys have got their little army that are fighting for them, and it's they're just fighting the war of two old men whose pride can't get the hell out of the way.
The Hannesseys have taken Julie, the owner of the Big Muddy, and they're trying to sucker the Tyrrells into the canyon, Blanco Canyon, which I just think is a beautiful place on film. They're trying to sucker the Tyrrells into the canyon so they can just shoot them up and kill them all. Rufus has kind of snapped after the loss of his cattle and stuff, and it was his last straw. And then the Tyrrells are doing the same thing. We want to take this bait because we're going to kill all of you.
Right.
But the way it shapes up is like the Tyrrells have no chance. If they go into this canyon, it's literally like a death pit.
It's a death pit. Yeah, it's like a box. Kill box.
It's a kill box. It literally is a kill box.
Yeah.
And Steve, Charlton Heston's character, tells Old Major, like, no, we cannot go in there. We'll be cooked.
Yeah.
We cannot go in there. And Charles like, no, we're going in. And he's like, we're gonna all die if we go in there. He's like, it's worth it if we kill them too. Like,
right.
But it's like to Terrell's like to Old Major, it's worth it if all those other guys die, but I don't. Like he's not. He doesn't want to die. I'm sure. But he's okay to waste all his men's lives if we kill all their men too.
Yeah.
Which is like it's this theme like we're talking about like the big country. If it's so big, why are we fighting over land?
Right.
Like, how could we be fighting over land if the country is so big? There must be some other land you can have.
Right. Well, and so this is maybe one of the only scenes that bothers me in the movie.
Me too.
Is it such a good scene where, like, Steve Leach stands up to the Major, all the men stay with him, and then the Major's like, fine, I see. I'm alone in this. And he, like, packs up his gun and gets and he gets on his horse.
Steve's like, I'm not leading these men to war. Like, I'm not taking them in there. That's stupid.
Right. So then, the Major takes off, and then they all catch up with him. And I'm like, wait, why did we just have this scene where you're standing up to the Major just for you to come and, like, everybody one by one right up next to him?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only scene in the movie that I felt like really bothered me. Because I'm like, that took all the teeth out of that scene I just watched.
Well, I think so. If you take it like that first part, like Charlton Heston's character has been an absolute jerk this whole movie, and you almost think you do think for a second that like maybe he learned from McKay. Like he's being called chicken, and the worst thing was that McKay was a coward, and Old Major calls Steve a chicken for not going into the kill box.
Right.
And he's like, sorry, I'm just not going to do it. And then he doesn't, and you're like, good, you learned from McKay. Like what being a man means standing up for yourself too.
Right.
Not just doing everybody's orders, but. Then he sees Old Major go in. I give Old Major credit for doing it on his own. But, like, then there's this, what is it? What pulls at him to go back?
I don't know.
He doesn't order his men to follow, though. So I will say that. You know, but it's like, that is the only father figure he's ever known. So whether it's like, well, if you're going to die, I guess I'll die. But, it does seem to conflict a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like that made no sense. Like, I don't, like you said, I don't necessarily see what would have drawn them to follow him at that point after making such a big stand of like, I'm not going, we're not going to, but again,
I don't know.
If there was loyalty, they wouldn't have made the stand in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of the point, and just having, what are you, McFly? Chicken?
Yeah.
Like, just to have
he doesn't
going,
bite.
like,
he doesn't
right.
bite.
Like,
and then
and then he bites. It's weird.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also like, some people are just going to fall into old routines because they don't know any better. So, but it's not a great, it does take away from Steve's arc. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he hasn't, that would be a great arc if he didn't follow him. The movie doesn't it's hard to figure out how you get to the end to an ending if that doesn't happen, but
right, because I mean, but the funny thing about it is so like they go into the we'll circle back because there's obviously a great part before this, but like when they go into
we're talking about the Tyrrell side, then we'll talk about the Hannassey side of the ending. The other
right. So like when the Tyrrells end up in the canyon and they drop the thing down and it, like you said, it becomes a kill box at that point. Like it's just it's like kind of the end, but at that point Rufus has had his thing, and we'll get to that. And he shows up and it's like, okay, it's just me and him now. So even in the end, with all the guys like following him in there, the final like shootout really is it's just between Rufus and the Major, which all those other men didn't need to be there. You know what I mean? Like because that didn't have anything to do with anything. Like
I think the only thing it does is it helps Rufus's character, because Rufus is the one that like it gives him that choice of saying, I'm not going to waste lives. Like, we're going to settle our own war. Like, we're not going to send other people to kill each other anymore.
Sure.
And if there was nobody to make that choice, then that choice is less.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if it ends up. It's like, would you rather have Rufus have a better choice and screw Steve's arc over? I guess I would. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. I guess that's fair.
Yeah. But let's talk about the Hannassey side,
because
it's really interesting too.
Same point, yeah.
So the part we didn't mention is before the kill box part was like McKay does go into the canyon,
right?
Even though old Major orders him not to, and he's like, "You're not telling me.
I don't work for you.
Yeah,
I don't work in this van.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, I'll shoot you." He's like, "Yeah, I don't think you will."
I don't think you will.
So he just go because he's going to save Julie, because at this point we figured out that he loves her.
Right.
He's got a thing for her, and we all do at this point in the movie.
Sure.
Like, we definitely like, she's way better than Pat.
Right.
Please go save her. So he goes in to get her, and at this time the Hennessys have learned that Julie doesn't own the Big Muddy anymore, that McKay does, and Buck tries to take advantage of Julie, but Rufus saves him, and they have a interesting interaction.
Because again, like kind of a big scene for Buck. I mean, he basically tries to grape her, and you're like, "Wait a minute, what's going on?"
Yeah,
like that's a bit much.
yeah. Well, and Buck's just dumb, and
yeah.
But then again, Rufus has that opportunity. Like Rufus is kind of snapping, but he does that. He keeps doing something where he's like, "There's a good person in there. He's just been pushed too far."
Yeah.
So he stops Buck. He's absolutely disgusted with Buck for doing that to Julie, and and Buck tries to choke him, and he just overpowers Buck because Buck's a weak piece of crap. But but yeah, so it's like, yeah, man, like Rufus, just like, get yourself out of this situation. You're a good human being. Don't make old Major ruin you. But kind of does. But then McKay gets there, and again, Buck has told Julie, like, if you tell like McKay that you've been kidnapped, I'm gonna shoot him. And and Julie kind of is like, Julie makes an interesting choice here, because Julie decides she would rather everybody kill them and save McKay, than tell the truth. You know what I mean? And that was an interesting choice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's fair, and I because I think you could look at that and be like, why would Julie play along with this? But I agree. Like, I do think it's because you're right. She would rather
all the Tyrrells and all the Hannassys shoot each other to death, than waste McKay,
But possibly herself, because again, if she doesn't get out of there, if it's a big enough battle, like everybody, it could be nobody getting
Looks
out.
Like there's only one way out. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's also part of it as well.
It's risky.
But this is kind of another, so now we get to a point where this is another one of those kind of satirical, I think, parts of a Western where, you have your quintessential quick draw gunfight.
The battle at the OK Corral.
Right. And that's not what happens here. So Buck and Jim fight, and they finally said, okay, like, we're going to settle this like men. And Rufus has found the dueling pistols on the horse, and they said, okay, and these are, again, kind of like Alexander Hamilton,
Yeah, they're going to do a classic pistol. 10 something.
10 pace, 10 paces.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the song from Hamilton, like 10 Dual Commandments.
Right.
Is that it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. So I think that's also kind of really funny that they take it away from this, quick draw,
multiple shots,
gunslinger, to a gentleman's duel.
Yeah.
And kind of, again, shirking the convention of the Western.
Yeah.
So I think that's another notch in the satire, line, if you will, for the big country.
Yeah. And I love how it's framed. Just got to think about the movie making too, not just what the movie's saying, but like, when they do their 10 paces from each other, it's just like perfectly framed where like Buck's on the edge of one, side of the screen. Jim's right in the edge of the other, and Rufus is kind of perfectly right there in the middle. It's like, they just obviously every pace was counted before they shot. It was just,
Oh yeah.
it's perfect. But then, like, of course, like, it's a gentleman's game, and Rufus is a coward, and he shoots early, right? He's just a chicken.
Yeah.
He's not a man. Like, he's
Right.
not a man. Jim is a man, and it grazes Jim in the head. Like,
Right.
it could have blown his brains out, and then
Right.
what? But then it's like, okay, it's Jim's turn to fire back. You're supposed to just stand there. It's it's not a fight. This is a duel.
Yeah.
And before they can say shoot, Buck is crying and
Right.
whimpering and hiding
Runs
behind a
under the
wagon.
right behind the wagon.
And then Rufus is screaming at Jim to shoot anyway, and Jim shoots at the ground. Like, I don't need to kill you to prove anything to you. Again, Jim does everything on his terms. He's not stubborn,
Right.
but he's doing things on, like, morally based,
Right.
not like influenced by other people's pressure.
Right. And then again, usurps the Western convention. So even though they had the duel, it didn't.
Nobody
Nobody
got
died.
shot.
Nobody got shot in the duel. It was actually Rufus that ends up shooting Buck because Buck is not an honorable person, and
Right.
runs and tries to get a gun and then
Shoot him in
shoots-
the back.
Right, and just shoot an unarmed man, and Rufus wasn't going to have that, and he told him he wasn't going to have that. So
Again, Rufus does something commendable.
Right. Well, and I think in that moment too, and this is obviously the turn for Rufus, is what leads him into the canyon to actually just ultimately face the Major by himself, is this idea that he sees the hatred that's boiled over onto his sons, and how it all kind of rolls downhill. And I think that's a big part of it as well. That it's part of the movie, but it is subtle in its own way. Is how it has kind of this hatred has rolled down onto the kids, and the kids have their own kind of poison venom for the other side, and they kind of carry it out in various ways. And you're right, it leads to Rufus having that revelation moment, that weakness and need moment, where he goes into the canyon and decides, I'm going to face the Major by myself. It's just he and I. The only people that need to die are he and I.
Right. And in that way, it's a great choice. And it's like, there's, I don't know if maturity is the right word, but maybe some clarity. But it's also still sad that he's like, I can't just let this go at all. Like, maybe nobody has to die. Is that like an option?
Right.
That's
true.
But it's nice. Like, but he kind of knows, like, I just, I'm so filled with hate. My kids are full of hate. Like, I'm going to save other people, but I still have to try to end this.
Yeah.
At the end, they both die, and really, they're the ones who should die. Like, if anyone is to die, it should be the old Major and Rufus. It's their war. It's their revenge. They're seeking. That, again, nobody else has played any part other than what they were ordered to do.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is completely out of order, obviously, because we've just kind of wrapped the end of the movie now.
Sure.
Because, like, obviously at this point, Jim and Julie end up together, as it should be.
Yeah.
But we've kind of glossed over her character a lot in this movie, and I find her character super interesting. She's the school teacher, but she also, like you said, owns the Big Muddy, which is the big stretch of land that is kind of the central focal point of this whole war. Them trying to get this land so that one can either block the other. And so when Jim does kind of go off on his own, on his walkabout, if you will,
Sure.
and ends up at the Big Muddy and talks to Julie about buying the land and all of that, I think they go. I really like her as an actress. I like her performance in this movie. I think you're right. With somebody that is so completely unlikable like Patricia, like so right off the bat, Julie's the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think with every scene with her, you really kind of you understand why Jim McKay would fall for her more and more. And it's funny, they even have like those little like fun and compelling scenes, like when Jim's walking around the house, and she's like hiding with the gun or whatever, and he like falls through the floor or whatever, like just it was kind of like a meet cute situation. It's just kind of funny. But then they have I love the scene when they're sitting at the little cottage or whatever where she's living, and it's like he's telling her the story about the sailor and the shark and the legs, and then like she tells the story about the Comanche. It almost reminds me of Jaws. When they're comparing battle scars.
Right, for sure.
So, but it also kind of goes to that central point of like people being from these different areas and like, what do you see? What do you not see? And your worldview and how people are different and the same. So I think that they did a lot of work in, I think, a short amount of time to get you to really connect to Julie and you as a character, or you as a viewer, want Jim McKay to end up with her.
Yeah, yeah, you do, and they also have to make to your point there too. Like even as it ties into the ending, like Jim is we met the Jim who everything's got to be on his terms, like we've already said, and very morally based. But at that end, like he is willing to fight Buck in a heartbeat.
Right.
When it comes to saving Julie's life. Again, when it really, again, Jim is not a coward. He just does things when it should be done, not because somebody asked him to do it or somebody tells him to do it. So like, and so you have to make sure that to keep the McKay, who's such a strong character, to keep those morals in line, like you have to, as a viewer, be on board with him fighting for her to the death.
Yeah.
And, I think you are.
Well, and they do a great job, too, solidifying that by having her be the one to confront Patricia and kind of almost show that McKay is somebody worthwhile.
Right.
That her, stupid hang-ups about, cowardice and all that is just, it's all bull. And I love that scene, like where she comes to the house and, Patricia's in her room and she has to drag it out of her, like she didn't want to talk to her about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think it's just especially by this scene and pretty much through this entire scene, it just becomes so clear that Patricia is such a spoiled brat. And she just she even says how many times does a man have to win you?
I love that line.
You know what I mean? I think that's just, it's so great. And then she has so many kind of Julie has so many great kind of dagger lines in this scene. Like, if you love him, how could you think it of him?
Right.
About the cowardice and all of that. And they have to have Ramon prove that he corroborate that he had actually ridden Old Thunder and all of that. And I think that for me, for being a scene where it feels like Julie's trying to get Patricia to go back to take Jim back, essentially, and you're like, no,
Julie, you're making too good of an argument.
Stop, please, for the love of God. And so I'm not gonna lie, I got afraid when Patricia does show up in town at Jim's room and is trying to kind of possibly beg him to come back.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. It's stupid of me to think it. Oh, you just. But she had such a great line. If you'd only remembered how much you mean to me. I'm
it's
just
his fault.
It's his fault. It's just so crazy. But I was afraid we were getting ready to have a Ducky moment in Pretty in Pink, where it's no, you belong with Ducky, not with Blaine. But she ends up with Blaine. You're come on, man. I did not want Jim to go back to to Patricia. I wanted him to go to Julie. So when he was finally nope, we're done, I was thank the maker.
Yeah.
Because God, that would have killed the movie for me right there.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I would have recommended it if that had happened.
The movie right there.
But anyway, the movie was not killed at that point. And to me, the movie never is. So let's start answering some of the questions, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So the question we did kind of pose, I think we can give a pretty good answer to it. I think, as you mentioned, in season 1, I introduced High Noon, which was made in 1952, and John Wayne called it the most un-American movie of its time, because it was very much an antithesis to a Western.
Yep.
I don't know if those are. I'm not necessarily drawn to those types of movies, so I'm not saying the big countries that I love.
You are.
I love spaghetti westerns, right. So as well. But so let's answer that question as best we can, Rob. Do you think this was satire, in a way, not making fun, but maybe poking at what classical westerns are thought of as?
I 100% think that.
Yeah.
I thought it coming in, and I
think we made a lot of good points.
I think you can point to so many various elements of this movie beyond just Jim McKay, because I feel that's the low hanging fruit. It's Jim McKay's not your typical Western.
He never wear a cowboy hat from any point in this movie.
Nope, he always dressed how he wanted to dress. Man from the East, all of that. He always was who he was going to be, and I think that so just looking at it from that one singular element it wouldn't be fair. It has to be more than that. And I think there are so many beats in this movie that they, like I said, subvert expectation and you kind of take it into a completely different direction and poke fun, like you said, at what Western masculinity is meant to be.
Right.
You know, this almost caricature of
Yeah.
what a cowboy
Yeah.
is supposed to be.
Right.
And
kind of point out cowboys aren't great people. Like this,
Right.
we've idolized people that they're not that good a person.
Right. Well, or they're just, or in the end, they're just people, and they're fallible,
Right.
and
Sure.
they're,
Sure.
you know, and they're just as much of jerks.
They're not heroes.
Right. Exactly. Like there are some heroes, and there are some not. And I think that that's kind of the whole point of this is like that idealization of
It's not
the
a blanket
American
statement.
West. Right. Exactly. And you know.
Similar to Harakiri with the samurai.
Right, very much so, 100%. And you know, this was released in what, 58? So, you know, we're kind of not quite to New Hollywood yet,
Yeah.
but I could see something like Big Country being a big influence. You mentioned McCabe and Mrs. Miller on somebody like Robert Altman.
Sure.
You know,
right.
and those guys that were, you know, kind of deciding to make different types of Westerns, kind of taking that idealization out of it.
McKay and McCabe, those names are really
It's
close.
true. It could have been a thing. I can't speak to that one way or another, but I totally could see it being true.
We can connect dots that aren't really there.
For
like,
sure.
We have that right.
This is our show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, 100%, I think this is satire. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree for all those kind of reasons you say too. And one thing that we really didn't mention early in the movie, there is some comedy in there too that I think is kind of unexpected and works. You know, like which we didn't really mention this, but you know, like in that initial scene when the Hannasseys are chasing after McKay and stuff, like they're riding the horses funny. It looks like a circus show. You know, so Ramon's funny throughout the movie,
which is part of the reason why he didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because it kind of came off as comical.
Yeah, he was laughing at one point. He's like, "Look at those guys."
Right.
But like you said, when McKay and Julie are at the Old Muddy and they're telling those stories, like, you know, McKay passes out, but it's because the story was so intense, but it's a joke. So there's, you know, and when McKay is getting ready to ride Big Thunder, like how the horse like keeps ripping off its own whatever you put under the saddle,
blanket.
So it's just like, it's just funny, you know. In comedy isn't really something you expect to see in a lot of westerns.
No,
you know?
It's not. You know, and it's funny. It just kind of hit me. I was thinking, you know, we were talking about what Buck tried to pull with Julie. You know, Steve Leach tried to pull the same thing on Patricia.
Yeah.
You know, forced himself on her.
Yeah.
You know, to kiss her or whatever. And like, it's funny that, you know, that they chose those two characters to do something so similar.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of, we're talking about the idea of the cowboy not being that idealized kind of person, and I think that's so, you know, interesting to have both of those guys who in this movie kind of represent both sides of that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, obviously the honorable man is Jim McKay.
Right.
So yeah, I think I more I think about it, I just can't see this movie as anything else but satire.
Yeah, it was made, I think, to like we've said, like to kind of not. To unheroize, or I can't remember what we talked about with Harakiri, the language we used, but to not like put cowboys necessarily on a pedestal. Yes, there's good ones, but you know, they're just being a cowboy in and of itself doesn't make you a hero. All right, Rob. Well, then the bigger question that we always
question in the big country.
Yeah, it's a big question, Rob. Is you know, I love this movie. I presented it to you. You've never seen it before. I need to know your reaction, your final synopsis. Did you love this movie as much as I do, and would you recommend it to others?
Man, last month you also brought me a movie that I loved.
I did.
You did. And this month you did it again.
Yes.
You did it again, and it was maybe a layup. You might want to call it a layup. I don't know, but man,
it's a pretty highly regarded movie.
Big Country is pretty damn good. You know, RRR was great last month, and I said that could end up being my favorite movie of the year that you recommend. Big Country might end up now. Like, I really loved this movie. Like I said, I love the idea of the satirical Western in this way, and not being a comedy.
Right.
You know? So I think that there's so much that they did well in this movie as far as kind of, you know, breaking down the wall, breaking down the myth of the American West, and kind of foreshadowing what would come in New Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I think Gregory Peck is just magnetic on the screen as always. Like, it's his voice, it's the way he carries himself, it's the weight. He just is. Every frame of this movie that he is in is his. It is his. but but that's not to detract. I think Jean Simmons as Julie Maragon is fantastic. Even as much as I dislike Patricia, I think Carroll Baker is great as Patricia.
You have to have a good actress to be that annoying.
Right, exactly. She plays the part so well. You know what? A funny thing, I looked it up. You've seen another movie with her in it. Do you know what it is?
Ooh, no.
She is the mom of the, I guess the killer boyfriend husband and kindergarten cop.
Is she really?
She's the mom. Oh,
I can see her clear as day in my mind. Wow, yeah, I see it. And she's horrible in that movie.
Right, exactly. But so I just thought that was funny.
I didn't know. No, wow, that's cool. I did not know that.
Charlton Heston's obviously great in this movie. Yeah. Burl Ives.
Ives is great.
I think Ramon is the unsung hero of this movie. Alfonso Bedoya.
Yeah,
I looked it up. Fantastic. But Burl Ives, man.
Yeah,
I mean, really swings
not just
for
a
the
snowman.
Fences. No, not just the snowman, and he swings for the fences in this movie. And it's the beard. I'm a sucker for a guy with a beard.
Those eyebrows, which are not real. His eyebrows are not that crazy.
I don't believe it.
I looked it up. But yeah, he's great.
He's such a complex character. I think perhaps obviously Jim McKay is the pinnacle of that, but I think there's a lot of complexity to Rufus Hannassey in this movie that is kind of maybe underappreciated.
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
It's so good. Well, you brought me another winner, Ray.
Yes.
You brought me another winner. I love the big country, and because of that, it makes me very confident in your recommendation skills.
Okay.
At this moment,
I respect that.
So
put respect on my game.
Well, I see game recognizes game, so
exactly.
I have to know, Ray. Is there anything else I should be watching?
Oh,
and that you would recommend?
Yes, I am. Well, first of all, I'm just knee deep in shows across multiple streaming platforms, so trying to keep up with them all has been a bit of a headache. But I have knocked a couple off the list. I did check out that Hulk Hogan Real American doc.
Oh boy,
just kind of had hopes they were going to show like the dark side of Hulk Hogan.
Did not believe they would do that.
They really don't. Like not like the first. It's a 4-episode deal. The first 3 episodes are probably just like any Hulk Hogan doc you would find anywhere,
right.
Like any biography or any WWE one that they already probably have on their website. The 4th episode goes into a little bit like post-retirement and like, just like his divorce and the sex thing and a little bit, but then it just turns and like how he found God after. But they literally have to lie and like mess with the timeline
and pretend that he actually did.
No, they're doing this thing like where he's like meeting his wife who's saving him, but he married her in 2023, and they're showing him clips at church in 2018. So it's like you're. This is not a doc anymore to me. Like
right.
If you're like are messing with the timeline like this, so didn't appreciate that. Left a bad taste in my mouth, but so it wasn't what I was looking for with that doc, just because it really didn't tread any new ground.
Sure,
but and there is ground to tread because Hulk Hogan's really famous now for holding wrestlers down and all this stuff, and there's not been a doc about
just
that.
A general dirtbag.
Well, yes, I'm talking about Hulk Hogan in his good years.
Right.
Was bad behind the scenes.
Yeah, I know.
Hulk Hogan after that, we all know. Full Swing season 4 for all you golf fans out there. I really look forward to it, but it's not what it turned. Like, this is the 4th season, and I think they've changed the premise of the show. It used to be like they would follow some golfers around. You'd get to know them like individually, it's golfers are like, if you follow golf, it's kind of hard to get to know the golfer. And Full Swing really let you introduce you to some guys. But now it's just like this doc it's still a behind the scenes aspect to it, but it kind of just shows the same guys every year as they prepare for like this big event at the end. And so it's all about this last event, which is like the Ryder Cup. And so I don't know, it just feels like they've changed the mission statement. It went from like a 10-episode thing where they showed lots of golfers to just these really 4 quick episodes, and they just get to the Ryder Cup and do that. It's like, I don't know, it's like it's not what it used to be.
I didn't even know that show existed.
I know, but if you're,
I don't know if I've ever heard you even mention that show before.
I think I've talked about all 4 seasons probably on the show, but you just you like to keep it short. You don't listen to me. But TV shows, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters.
I gotta start it.
That's
I
an
haven't
Apple
even
TV
started
show
it.
with the King Kong universe.
I
I
know.
really like it. King Kong Godzilla verse. I really like the show. I think the season 2 to me was an improvement on season 1. I thought season 1 was pretty good.
Yeah,
I
enjoyed
thought season 2 was an improvement. Kurt Russell is great. Wyatt Russell's really fun. The supporting cast I think is really great too, and I think they fleshed them out. That they have relationships that challenge each other in a good way on screen. I think for me, not being like huge into, I'm no Kitty Kaiju when it comes to this little monsterverse, but like explaining how this sub universe works and kind of building rules to it through this show really kind of has worked for me. So I kind of appreciate that. So I definitely think that's a show to jump on if you've got Apple TV. Rooster is a huge win for me. That is a huge win for me. Is it over? It's over.
Oh, okay.
It's 10 episodes. I thought it was 11, but IMDb, they always have like the one episode for next season, so it really was only 10. But Rooster was great, really great cast. Steve Carell to me is he's rebounded. He's found his next role he can really sink his teeth into. Doesn't feel like Michael Scott, but it does feel like Steve Carell still, which is great. Danielle Deadweiler, I don't really know her. Charlie Clive, haven't really seen her a ton. They're two awesome actresses from this show. A dude from his name is Phil Dunster from Ted Lasso, who I loved him in Ted Lasso. He was a very complicated, hard to like character that you liked. He kind of plays those same qualities, but a completely different character in this show. So he's got this like charming unlikability to him, which is like really, he does a really great job of. So really great show. Like first episode I was kind of like maybe, and by episode 2 I think I was fully bought in.
Found its stride.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that. Find time. It's only a half hour too, so it's easy to fit that into the schedule. And then we finished with Daredevil's Born Again season 2. I think we had known you'd been watching that, so I thought that was great. I thought season 1 of Daredevil, it was a little Frankenstein together. They stopped midway through. They changed some story features, tried to keep some old footage while doing the new footage. But that was all done in season 1. So season 2 is like they knew the story they were trying to tell.
Right through. Yeah, it goes like a freight train.
It does. It's compact and it's intense.
Yeah,
and anytime like Kingpin and Daredevil are on screen together, I think it's like dynamic.
Oh yeah. D'Onofrio is like he has solidified himself as Kingpin.
Oh yeah.
I think he is just amazing as Kingpin. I think Charlie Cox is great as Daredevil, and Matt Murdock, like either both characters simultaneously. I really like the supporting cast.
Yeah.
That they've kind of brought up in this story as well. Not just Karen Page, Deborah Ann Wall. Like obviously she's great as well, but. Gandolfini's kid. I always forget his name. Michael. Is that Michael Gandolfini?
I think so.
Like he is phenomenal.
I loved his character.
Phenomenal in this season. I was blown away by how good he was.
Yeah, and his character was kind of annoying, I thought, in season 1, but I thought just great in season 2 here.
And I feel terrible because I can't remember her name, but the actress who plays Matt Murdock's ex-girlfriend, the psychologist, I thought her turn this season was really interesting as well. I thought she did some really, really great work.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see where she goes in a third season. So
Looks like she's going to turn into a villain.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be I think the third season is going to be maybe even better. Maybe possibly. I mean, the way that this one ends, it's almost. I mean, it's got the Empire ending. You
Definitely
know what I mean?
does. And
So
I
it's
love,
okay.
Yeah, I love how like all the characters at the end of season 2, they're still moving, but they're in completely different places.
Yeah.
All of them. There no character is starting season 2 or is going to start season 3 where they started season 2, and that is like great storytelling to me. But they're still all in very intriguing spots.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's great. Well, good. I'm glad you checked that out. What else have you been checking out?
I got a bunch of movies that I have watched, so that was the only show that I finished. I think I've got a couple more. I'm almost done with Invincible, so I'm sure I'll be talking about that next time.
Good.
But I'm almost done with Invincible. And obviously The Boys is chugging along.
We're getting close to the end.
Yeah,
there.
I think by the next episode we'll be done with The Boys.
Yeah.
But as far as movies go, I watched this movie. I honestly went in thinking I was either going to hate or just not really care about one way or the other, and that is The Housemaid.
So no way you were going to like this movie.
I didn't think I was.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was going to, I like Amanda Seyfried a lot. I have no feeling really one way or the other about Sydney Sweeney, Like I don't even really have negative feelings about Sydney Sweeney. I don't watch Euphoria. Like I don't have like in some ways it kind of is. But this movie was actually a lot of fun. It is kind of it reads like a trashy romance novel in a lot of ways. Like I don't know if you're familiar with what it's about, but it's like
I don't think so. I am.
Like Amanda Seyfried plays like an upper middle class, or like an upper class housewife, and she ends up bringing in Sydney Sweeney as a maid, and then like Amanda Seyfried kind of goes crazy and treats Sydney Sweeney really like awful, and Amanda Seyfried's husband, who is like this really like charismatic tech bro guy, like kind of starts having like attractions to Sydney Sweeney, and it's a really
Cinderella effect,
kind of, but it's a very interesting movie. There's a lot of really interesting twists and turns in the movie, and I think Amanda Seyfried is so underrated as an actress. I think in fact, I feel like they could have let her off the chain even more a little bit. And the funny thing about this movie, and it's based on a novel, I guess there's like a series of them, but with the subject matter, it was funny. I almost could have seen John Waters making this movie in the 80s, but that would have like turned the trash up to like 20, which would have been amazing, obviously. But it had that kind of it's a good movie. It has that kind of like wine mom kind of trashy romance novel elements to it as well. But it's good. Like there's really good.
It's always good to be pleasantly surprised when you go with like mild expectations.
Absolutely, or rock bottom expectations for that matter. Let's see. The next thing I watched is The Long Walk.
The Long Walk.
The Stephen King adaptation with Cooper Hoffman. And so I've read the novel, so I was really excited to watch the movie. It's really great. It's a really great adaptation. An author who it's very spotty if they can adapt his work properly.
Yeah, exactly.
And so this isn't like a horror story, obviously. I mean, it is. I take that back. It is. It 100% is, but it's not like supernatural in that way. Like, because it's about this group of boys who are part of this walk,
right? Essentially,
and if you walk the longest, you win a wish, whatever your wish is, as well as a bunch of money. But if you don't, you die. They shoot you. And it's crazy. Like, and the great thing about the story is it really does all take place on the walk. Like there is a couple of flashbacks, but it really takes place on the walk. And the movie actually is even more on the walk, I feel like, than the book is, which is really hard to do when you're basically sitting there for almost 2 hours just watching these guys walk. But they do a lot of, I mean, the book does a really great job of getting the characters interacting with one another, getting to know each other, becoming friends on this walk, knowing that everybody, right, knowing that all of these guys you want them to die because you want to be the last one. And the movie, the two leads, it's Cooper Hoffman, and he's the guy that plays the synthetic human in Alien Romulus. I feel terrible not knowing his name because he is phenomenal in Alien Romulus and in The Long Walk. But their chemistry is off the charts amazing. And they do some changes, to the story, which work, for the screen. But I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the book and just have maybe not wanted to watch it because you're worried if it's a good enough adaptation or not. They definitely do it. Mark Hamill is in it as kind of like the bad guy. And it's just really great. Another thing that I watched is Good Fortune with Keanu Reeves, Seth Rogen, and Aziz Ansari. That was actually really fun. Like so it's funny that I talk about this on this podcast because Keanu Reeves plays an angel who his whole shtick is stopping people from crashing while texting and driving. Okay. So it's very City of Angels or Wings of Desire. Sure. Like that. It's so much that they're just angels just sitting there watching people right behind your back. So like that's what he does, but he wants to do something more. He wants to change somebody's life. So he runs into Aziz Ansari. He like saves him, and then he's kind of like a down on his luck documentary film editor, and he becomes the personal assistant of Seth Rogen's character, who's like a billionaire tech bro douchebag, and he ends up getting fired. So he ends up switching their lives, but he's not supposed to do it. So he gets himself into a lot of trouble, and like he kind of ends up not becoming an angel anymore. It's a lot of It's a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
And the trio dynamic is really great. And I mean, Keanu's just so good. And it's great too because he plays like a character that's very similar to himself. He's a very genuine person who's like just trying to do something nice and impactful. Up. But it's just like but then it starts becoming too much for him. So his character kind of changes through the movie and he gets really downtrodden. And it's funny to watch like him kind of balance that.
Yeah.
So it's a really fun movie. I think it's another one that I didn't know what to expect going in, but it was a lot of fun. The last one I watched, and I was super excited to watch this, was Send Help.
Right.
Which was the Sam Raimi movie with Rachel McAdams.
Stuck on an island with a bad boss.
Right, stuck on an island with a bad boss. And it was a lot. It's really great. I was I'm not going to say shocked, because that's not right. But I was a little surprised how close the story was to Triangle of Sadness.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you ever watched Triangle of Sadness, but it's a very similar thing where it's like a cruise ship full of wealthy people who end up crashing on an island, and then like the servants, end up kind of becoming, they're the only ones who are not do anything.
Right.
So it's that kind of situation in this as well, where she's like, a kind of a socially awkward survivalist, and she knows what to do on this island and stuff. But they Sam Raimi definitely injects his own voice into it. There's a lot of like gross out moments, and I almost wish they had kind of, like I said earlier with Housemaid, I wish they kind of let Rachel McAdams off the chain a little bit more and let her get a little crazier. But I think overall it was a really good movie. It's fun. It's got a I think a message that resonates right now with a lot of people, and that's probably for better and for worse.
All right, well, let's wrap up this big country episode. This episode's been big enough. But before we wrap this up, I challenge any of our listeners to an old-fashioned duel with classic fighting pistols. If they do not like, subscribe, or review this podcast if able. Because if you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it live on air, and that's cool. Write us an email. You can reach out to us at carrayrob@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. You can now also find us on Facebook and Instagram. By all means, go and give us a like on both of those platforms. See all the great things we're doing over there. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are listening to us on, by all means, let us know what you thought of the big country. Mm-hmm. We want to know what your favorite Western is. We may have asked that question before. I don't know. But you know what? I haven't seen the answers, so I want to see the answer. Then maybe they changed. Exactly. We will be back next week, where we will be wrapping up the month of May with this month's Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I are going to be revisiting the beach classic comedy Back to the Beach.
We're going back to the beach.
We're going back to the beach.
Back to the beach.
Exactly. Starring Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon. I remember really loving this movie as a kid, and I hope it still holds up, but we're going to have to find out. Then we will be back with our opening June episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, where it will be back to me, and I'm going to take it easy on Ray. I'm going to let him know now.
I deserve it.
You deserve it. I'm going to take it easy on you. But I'm still going to bring something that I think is maybe challenge you a little bit, but I think you're still going to like it.
Okay.
But then we will be back with a brand new episode of A Copy of a Copy, where Ray and I are doing something we have never done before, because we are going to a movie theater to see a movie.
We've done that before.
We've done that, but we're not specifically for an episode.
Yes.
Because we are going to be rewatching the original Masters of the Universe and the new 2026 version of Masters of the Universe.
Hope it's cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of hope. A lot of hope for that one, so we'll see. But then it will be back to Ray for his episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, and we will see if he can bring me another one that I love. He's got a great track record going. But you are not going to want to miss a single episode. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone, before I go, I got to give you a little sneak peek of what I am going to be bringing Ray next month in the month of June, and it is Pride Month, so I am going to be doing my own little celebration by recommending to Ray the 1991 new queer cinema classic, My Own Private Idaho, directed by Gus Van Sant, starring Keanu Reeves, the late River Phoenix. It's a really great movie about two street hustlers who are kind of trying to find where they belong in the world in that late 80s, early 90s LGBTQ climate. It's obviously a very hard, so it's a very great kind of human story. I think Ray's really going to connect with it. I think you will too if you have not. So by all means, go out and check out My Own Private Idaho, and we will see you next month.